This is a Ford, and I've got a vacuum leak in my HVAC control or my damper control. You know, the one where you turn it from blowing at the top, the defroster, to the max AC, to your feet, not working. So I'll trace it back for you and show you kind of how you get this controls out. There's 2 screws, and you can pull the radio out just straight out. You have to pry it a tiny bit. Then there's 4 screws or bolts holding this control module in, and essentially the vacuum lines here, all those different colors go out to different dampers that move and open and close different little doors. And so if we trace where the vacuum's coming from, the source goes to the engine through these black and white lines. I think the white may be a return line going to something else, but where they enter through the firewall is kind of under the right kick panel. That orange is the radio antenna, and then up above there in the very top corner, if you want to find out if you have vacuum inside the cab and those lines, just unplug that white connector there and put your finger over and see if you can feel it on the black and white lines. Then you'll know if the problem is upstream, downstream at the HVAC controls. So I got this Harbor Freight, a little vacuum tester / fuel pump tester, and I just made a T on the end so that I could test all the dampers individually. So I unplugged this connector out of the back of the rotating switch, and the center hole is the actual vacuum, and so I'm going to plug that in, and then what I'll do is test all the other holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there may be 4 or 5 for the different dampers. So first we got to turn the engine on, create some vacuum. Love it. Okay, so now I've got that in. I'm actually going to test the vacuum pressure first. And so I'm going to actually block off this side of the T, and that will just give us the vacuum pressure. This gauge looks kind of messed up. It starts on 10. I don't know if it's supposed to, but I can see that the vacuum moves up to the same number every time. So if I click this over, then I hear the fan blowing, and you can see there's no air coming out of there. A whole little piece of paper there, nothing happening, no air blowing, nothing coming there. So the default, if you have a vacuum leak, is for the defroster vents to blow, and that's great because in the wintertime, if you need defrost, you know, it's always working, even if your vacuum lines are leaking up here. So plug that in again, and then I'm going to test out one by one to show you, and you can see vacuum's climbing back up because that damper is working. Get this focused, you'll be able to see the little damper moving. I'm going to grab the light and put it down here. Okay, so there's the door that it's like the recirculation, so if it's open, it'll suck in inside air. So see, now it's opening. So that vacuum is sucking down that lever and letting the inside air circulate through, as opposed to outside fresh air coming in. And I think that setting is for like max AC on the Fords. That's when it opens. And you'll hear the fan kicking up. So I'm getting a little higher speed, I think. Okay, so now I've switched it to the front vent mode. I'm going to put the receipt in front here so you can see that one's working. So testing that, doing well. Make it a little more obvious. It's blowing that paper. I've had this truck for a year and I've never had it blowing out of there, so I'm pretty excited. We got full vacuum, pulling it in those 2 ports. So now I plugged the connector back in and pushed it really firmly in there. That is actually where I had my leak. I could hear it in the switch when I had taken it apart. There was a little leak in there when I would switch the knob. So plugged it back in. I put a little grease in there, hoping that would kind of plug the leaks a little bit, hold it off for a while. I could go and get a replacement of those colored lines, but that seemed to fix it. So I switch it over now to the foot selector, and you can see it's blowing over that corner where it comes out. Awesome. this thing is fixed. And I didn't have to change or fix any vacuum lines under the hood. See ya.